All right, welcome back, everybody. Seems like everyone's getting the hang of this platform a little bit. I know that first session is always a little bit challenging as we're hopping in, everything's new, making sure you got a good connection, making sure audio and all that's working. But thanks for being here. A couple things just wanted to bring to your attention. So some of you were figuring it out. The survey. You'll need to refresh your page on the platform if you want to access the survey for the last session. And so if it's not popping up, try refreshing. Right now, as far as the leaderboard for the conference, we've got an early leaderboard. I've got Tracy with 345 points. I've got Drew with 335 points. We've got Sharon with 265 points, Rebecca with 250, and Lynn with 245 points. And so I remember under leaderboard, there's a number of ways it'll tell you how you get points. So find a scavenger hunt item, watch a session, review a session, chat with an exhibitor. Those are all things. And there's an exhaustive list on that form underneath the leaderboard. All right. Well, we're going to jump into this next session, and we are very privileged to have Shannon Butler here with us today. Shannon Butler is the founder and director of Ethical Solutions LLC, established in 2020. Shannon has over 20 years experience working as a guardian and conservator, and is currently the only nationally certified master guardian in the state of Minnesota. Shannon has served on the Magic Board, Center for Guardianship Certification Board, former president of CGC, as well as serving on the NGA board, and is the 2024 president of the National Guardianship Association. Ethical Solutions is dedicated to following the NGA standards of practice and ethical principles to provide professional, quality, ethical, and least restrictive guardianship and conservatorship services in southern Minnesota. And so, and even when I say Minnesota, I call it Minnesota. I got the little there, but it's with great privilege to introduce to you Shannon Butler. And Shannon, I'll go ahead and pass things off to you.
All right, thank you so much. So this is always kind of awkward for me, just talking to myself in my office. So I will do the best I can here. First, I was talking to Luke before we started here a little bit, and just telling him how much I use the state of Washington as such a great standard of guardianship practice, and that you guys have the most robust program to become a guardian. In Minnesota, we pass a background study and we put out a shingle and we're a guardian. I just feel like this is such an important profession, and we make such important decisions that it should be given the level of professionalism that you guys have made. So I want to applaud you for the programs that you have involved in the training and all of that. So I'm sure some of you are like, no, it costs us a lot of money and it's a lot of training, but I'm very thankful that you guys are doing that, and I'm hoping that other states will follow your example. So thank you for that. So I don't know if any of you were at the NGA conference, but I'm going to kind of do my spiel from there. So I started out by saying that I am really trying to think of ways in order to get more people into this profession. We have a lot of older guardians retiring, phasing out of guardianship. And so I saw a movie last summer, and I had inspiration as to how we could get people into the field. So I have created my little marketing gimmick. If you can all see, this is my guardian Barbie. She is a member of NGA. She also is certified and follows the ethical principles and standards of practice. You can get these cards free from NGA if you're a member. Just call and ask for some. These are great little tools. You probably don't need them as much in Washington, but I sure use them a lot here in Minnesota, explaining what a good guardian, how they practice and what they do. So this is Guardian Barbie again, with her pen. If you know Carlton at our NGA, he's selling these pens every year at the conference. So look for Carlton, buy a pin. Hope you can join us. I am told that Guardian Barbie will be met by Beach Ken at our Long Beach conference in Long Beach, California. So that'll be interesting. Um, so besides having little gimmicks that I've come up with, I do have, as the NGA president, I do have 3 initiatives that I have brought forth this year. Hopefully most of you are NGA members. If not, I would encourage you to join. There's a lot of great benefits that we've been working on. We've been working with a consultant, and we put a lot of great things in place now. We have 4 webinars every year that are free for members that would get you a CEU. So 4 CEUs a year that are presented. We also have introduced a lot of coffee chats of different topics. We also have some special interest groups. So if you have a special interest, we have some different ones, like one is for studying for the CGC exam. Another one is about starting your own business, how to do that, and by other guardians that can help give you advice. And there's some good attorneys there involved in that as well. Trying to think what the other one was. Oh, for public guardians. So if there's any public guardians here, there's a public guardian group that gets together, and that one's pretty robust. There's a lot of participants in that one as well. So just looking at all the benefits of NGA, of course, we have the conference every year, and we do a colloquium every other year as well. One thing I'm really excited about this year is that we're working on, there, as many of you probably know, there's a new Fundamentals of Guardianship book out, as we updated that from the National Guardianship Summit. NGA is partnering with the Center for Guardianship Excellence, which is out of Massachusetts, and we are working to put together an 18-hour course. Maybe that can replace some of your courses, I don't know. But it's an 18-hour course based on the Fundamentals of Guardianship book, which will be an interactive session virtually. So anybody across the United States can participate in that. So it'll be broken into 6 3-hour sessions, going through the book, interacting, giving some case scenarios, applying, what you're learning. So I think it's going to be a great training. I am very excited that it's coming out. I think it'll be great for my staff or anybody who is hiring new guardian staff, that you can just go to the site and they can kind of train your staff for you. And we already had that resource book, but I think this will be a really needed and awesome addition to what NGA can offer. So as far as my initiatives for this next year, we put all those things in place. We're trying to make it really, if anybody has ideas for things that could make NGA better, or things that you wish that we had, please let me know. We are always looking for new ideas, new initiatives, things to put in place. There's always a lot of work to do. So my first initiative, I will say, was, I'm going to grab my little book here. It's just black now. You have to see the cover on the side. That's the title, The Necessary Journey. My dog chewed off the cover. So I don't have that anymore. I had a puppy and chewed it all up. Anyway, it's called The Necessary Journey. And so what that was part of is my DEI initiative, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we voted unanimously as a board that this was something important to NGA, not only for us professionally, as well as personally, but also for our clients. We generally serve pretty diverse clients. Oh, I just was seeing one of the comments there. So as our clients are very diverse backgrounds, and I think guardians are probably more sensitive to this than most people, but we wanted to not sit back and, we wanted to take the lead on this as far as making sure that guardians felt like that, for one, NGA is DEI sensitive as far as accommodations that people need. And also, just training for opening her up, and where are our blind spots? What are we not seeing? Are we a diverse enough board? Are we representing, the majority of guardians across the United States? I think we are doing pretty well with that, but there's always blind spots, like I said, that we don't even notice. So we had trainer come into our board meeting in January, spent a half a day with us, kind of doing some exercises as a board to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. What are we, what are we missing? What do we need to be looking at as leaders in this field? What do we need to be doing? So it really got some, thinking going, and I thought it was very good. There was actually some people that were really touched and didn't realize through some of the exercises, how they became who they are, and some of the things they've had to overcome as being diverse. So I thought that was very interesting and helps us all learn from each other and be more sensitive to those kind of issues. So as a follow-up to that, I didn't want to just do like, okay, we did our DEI training, we're done, we're good. No, this should be a continual process. And so I had found this book called The Necessary Journey, which I just showed you with the chewed up cover. And so as a board, I've asked everybody to read this book. We're doing a book club. Once a month, we go through one of the chapters. And I really enjoy this book as it talks about, it's not a destination, it's a journey. Like I said, you can't just check it off your list and we're done. This is something that we need to continually revisit as, issues happen. Going through the book, it talks about different, it gives real life examples, which I really enjoy, as different companies and how they've dealt with DEI, where they are in the process, and how they've learned to address some of those things. What I found interesting is the first couple examples they brought up was the George Floyd, which happens to be, happened only an hour and a half north of me in Minnesota here. And how when that happened, which I think as a Minnesotan was a lot different. Well, maybe not a lot different, but different for us because like we recognize the places, and it was just surreal to see this happening in live on TV of what's going on just a little ways from us. But how this affected people across the country, especially those African Americans. I think it opened the eyes of people that are not African American, maybe a little bit more, made us more sensitive. But for African Americans, this book talks about how a couple of the companies, how that was kind of their turning point, and that they were giving some of the ways they addressed it was like some emotional PTO for people to take some time off, realizing this was really affecting some people emotionally and was having a hard time focusing. So they talked about that. They used other examples of things that just, I think, like we talked about the blind spots, and what other things are we not paying attention to? What other things are we not being sensitive about? Whether it's LGBTQ issues, being, I'm hearing more about being, Jewish in the United States now with what's going on, in Israel and Pakistan. So just trying to be sensitive to those things, making sure that that we're being sensitive to all the different issues out there. So and the way they address it, they talk about it being from top down and also from bottom up, like who's bringing this to the attention. It should be both ways, as people see stuff, say something, tell, this was really offensive to me, or this I felt really left out, or I felt excluded. Just giving, I think a lot of it is just being opening ourselves up to that criticism, and being vulnerable and admitting that we're making some, not mistakes, but that we're missing things. We weren't paying attention to different areas. So I just really enjoy the book, the way they do it. They talk, they talk about the necessary journey, and that everybody's at a different stage in their journey. There's some people that are just kind of opening their eyes to this, to companies that are doing this really well. And so it's nice to see like where you are. There's no right and there's no wrong. Everybody's different. Every organization's different. How are we going to apply this? And so this is kind of the journey that our board is taking, reading this book, trying to figure out how does this apply to NGA and what can we do better. And so if anybody has ideas, concerns, feels like they were left out in some way, please let me know about it. We're trying to to do our best here. I think there have been a few things where we have missed the boat. I know that we've talked about, oh, somebody's asking the author of the book. Let me look. It is Ella F. Washington. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it's kind of blurry. Guess it's not working. Sorry. Ella F. Washington, The Necessary Journey. I just got it off of Amazon, but I really enjoyed reading it. And I think it would be great for any organization. So that is one of my big initiatives of the year is continuing on this journey, figuring out where we are, what we need to do. I'm also working, this originally started with the CGC, Center for Guardianship Certification, where they started into it. And I said, hey, I was on both boards. So I said, hey, I think NGA needs to do this as well. So we kind of are piggybacking with them, figuring out like how is this going to work in reality with our boards. And so we have talked about how on each committee and everywhere that needs to be kind of somebody needs to kind of stand up for that. I can't remember what we're trying to call people, but that somebody is like paying attention to that in any decisions that we're making, that somebody can bring up and say, hey, but have you thought about how that would affect this person or this, set of people, just so that there is some kind of somebody's holding us accountable and we are keeping that in mind. I think we're going to be looking at that for the testing with CGC as far as the questions. Are they, appropriate? Are we addressing things? So it kind of finds its way into everything. And so we're just going to kind of let it organically grow and see where things take us. But love any input you can provide with that. The second initiative I have is another huge one, but a very necessary one, and that is data collection for guardianship. This just was coming up repeatedly. I think it probably started way before, but I know Anthony Palmieri, who was the NGA president 2 years ago, kept talking about data collection and how we need this data in order to make decisions and, request funding, make I guess a statement about our cause and why this is important and why guardianship is needed and important. And, I think one of the big things is there's all those bad news stories. We all know about those, there's the Wendy Williams, there's Britney Spears, Casey Kasem, what's the new one now? Jay Leno's got some stuff. There's some bad guardianship stories, and there's always, the other bad, the I care a lot kind of thing. And trying to fight that. And it's really hard. I know I was on the outreach committee for many years with NGA responding to media requests, and we get these negative guardianship stories that would come out talking about the bad guardian that stole all the money and, killed off her clients or, whatever. There's always something. And, they'd want me to respond to that. And unfortunately, the media doesn't find our answers very exciting or sexy, and they don't want to print those. So, they come to me and ask, well, what are your thoughts on this person? I said, they're a bad guardian. They weren't following the ethical principles and standards of practice. If they were certified guardian, if they were required to have these things, we wouldn't have these issues. And then I go through, how we would do things as a professional guardian. And of course, they don't print any of that, unfortunately. So I've been really frustrated when they, when we don't defend them. With guardianship, if we don't defend these bad guardians, they're kind of like, oh, well, that's not what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear how you're going to defend this person. And it's like, no, we are, our organization is all about doing professional, ethical work. So anyway, that was a little side note on my outreach, where I've been criticized for not standing up, and I keep saying I did stand up. I can't control what the media print or say. So unfortunately, that doesn't come across. But the data collection really would help us fight some of those bad stereotypes of like, who are the, I I find that I think more of the bad guardianship stories are gonna be coming out of family members, that don't really know what they're doing, and they have their own agenda as far as, managing their family members. I don't think it's, I think the majority of professional public guardians are doing a really good job and in doing some hard stuff with some very hard, tough situations. We've got a lot of red tape we've got to jump through, a lot of hurdles, a lot of, um, dealing with family members. And I don't think people realize how difficult this job can really be. So I think the majority of us are really trying to do a good job. And, I would just wish that, the general public would see that the good work that we do, and that, we are, we're not out there to get our, get something for ourselves. I think it's the ones that, unfortunately, the ones I see in Minnesota, the ones that aren't certified are just kind of doing this on their own. They don't really know what they're doing, and they may be doing some of it by accident, or they may be purposely doing some things that are wrong. But either way, we need to really push for professional guardianship. That's why we need the data to show that there's a reason that we do this professionally, that we are not the ones that are doing bad guardianship for the most part. Also for funding, that I don't think people realize how many people are under guardianship, how much it's needed. Also what we're doing to lessen what we're doing. I know that I do a lot of consulting with people with their cases, and I'm always looking for, what do you want the guardian to do? What do you want the conservator to do? And if they're asking for things that are beyond our scope, I let them know that, like, we can't force medications on people. We're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to change somebody's behavior. I need specifically what can we do? And if it's something we can't do under guardianship, conservatorship, what's a better way to address this? Are we just looking at, do they just need a placement? Do they just need a rep payee? Could we have them sign a release of information? Could we look at a supported decision-making plan? Different things like that. So I think the good guardians are out there. I always say my goal is to work my way out of a job. And, I've been lucky enough to be able to do that in a few cases where I've really, seen a person through from the beginning when they need a lot of support to when they can kind of go on their own. If any of you were at the NGA conference this last year in Orlando, I did a presentation with one of my former clients, which was such a privilege to do. She is one I got at age 18, a very angry young woman who needed a lot of support. She had a lot of issues. And, when you hear her life story, you understand why she was angry and why she was struggling. And I think that's, what people don't understand is you need to really get to know these people and see them as a person and a whole, and why are they acting like that? Not just, we need to control that. So my story with her, it took over 20 years, or around 20 years, I guess it was. From when I got her to where she is today. And it's an amazing story. And I give a lot of the credit to her. Well, I give almost all the credit to her. She did the hard work. I just got some of the things in place that she needed to succeed. So I think that's what a good guardian does too. Again, back to the data collection, we need to have some of those good stories and that good data showing that, we're not here to just control people's lives, that we're here to help people achieve their goals and become more independent whenever possible. And that, the data is needed for funding. I know that the funding, I'm not sure how you do it in Washington State, but I know even across Minnesota, it's different. Depends on what county you live on, what kind of services you're going to get, unless you're private pay. So there's a lot of inequity there that I think could be addressed as well. I see that, and as well as people not being given a choice of guardians. They're just told who's their guardian, and I don't think that's right either. I think that they should have somewhat of a choice in who their guardian will be. So data collection is my big one. So I did start a committee on this. I think it's going to be a long range committee. I can't imagine it ever going away now that we've got it started. It is a very beginning stages, and it is a huge topic. And I had appointed chairperson for this, and she is actually, I'm meeting with her tomorrow night because she's like, I am so confused on what am I supposed to be doing? And I'm like, this is part of what the committee is for, is just to kind of figure out, for one, I want to figure out, I said, number one, I want to figure out what's already out there for data. What do we know already? There is some data out there, but it's all scattered across the country. People have different forms of, different kinds of data, different information. I just felt like we should be the holding, kind of the holding center of the data that we do have. So they're collecting information from the state courts, and different states have collected different information. So number one, I just said, let's just find out what's out there already. We don't even know what's out there already. Let's get that collected, contain that in one place so that we can be a one-stop shop to try to find that information. Number two, what information don't we have that we would like to know about guardians, and how are we going to collect that? So I think first is finding out what's there, what do we need to know, what do we want to know, and then how are we going to collect that? And then looking at some funding, hopefully, for that, to collect that information, because I think it is important to have that. The other thing about it is it's a moving target. People are getting on and off guardianship constantly. People are dying, moving along. And, I think it's almost like you can't just get a chunk, just like stop time and like, okay, what does it look like right here? Let's get a slice of this, of what does guardianship look like? But we're going to do the best we can. Like I said, if anybody's got ideas, anybody's really good at data collection, or statistics, any of those kind of things, research, we would welcome you, which comes to my third initiative, which is volunteerism. I believe there's so much work to be done out there in the guardianship community. When we were talking about the DEI, we're talking about the data collection, we're, education, training, getting the media out there, getting positive things. There's so many things that we could be doing. But what I've seen is there's a small group of us that are the board, and, we end up serving on all the committees, and we're doing a lot of the work. And not that there isn't other work being done, but I just feel like we all need to take a step forward, is what I had brought up at my the conference, is that everybody needs to kind of take a step forward. What can you do? One little thing that you can do in the guardianship community, which is what I would encourage everyone to do here, is, whether that is locally, if you're participating like adult protection meetings, or you're doing some education for banks, or you're sending out an article to the editor, you participate in your state affiliate in some way, doing stuff with the legislature, whether you're, if you want to take it the next step up, you want to join a committee for NGA or CGC, I think we would love that. We're looking for new blood there. We want to keep it moving. It seems like we kind of recycle a lot of the same people, and I really want to encourage anybody that has an interest to pursue that, and get a hold of me personally. You can email me, and I'm sure we can do the contact here at some point. I'll put my email out there. But if anybody's interested, the data collection, we have membership, we have outreach committee, we have education committee, we have I can't even think of all of them, but there's lots of different opportunities out there. Or the conference committee, helping plan for conferences. If you know of a great speaker, let us know. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that we can do. I know that we're all busy as guardians and conservators, and it's hard to find that extra time, but even, just an hour a month, or a couple hours a month would be great. If there's anything you can do to just help promote good guardianship. Again, if you didn't see that, we have those, if you're NGA member, get these ethical principle cards, leave them around wherever. They're great for people. People love these. I always bring them to my conferences, and whenever I'm presenting at stuff, it's just kind of gives an idea for people of what does a good guardian look like. This is what a good guardian should be doing. It really opens some people's eyes. They're like, oh, well, my guardian doesn't do that, or that kind of thing. It's like, well, they're not a professional guardian then, because they don't understand how they're supposed to be acting as a guardian if they're not following those principles. So with that, I'm trying to think if there was anything else I was going to talk about, but mostly I was going to leave it up for questions for people. of anything with NGA or just anything about guardianship in general. Something I can talk about forever, and I probably bore a lot of people with it, but I'd love to answer any questions that you have. So I don't know if Luke wants to try to find
Yep.
what questions you got out there. And I'll try
Yeah,
to
so we had
answer.
a lot of great comments and interactions here during the session. One regarding Laura Schmidt saying my opinion is that UW, so University of Washington,
Yeah.
for required training is the barrier because of the cost and time. With the required CEUs, is it truly necessary to have the UW length for training? So, and there were some comments.
I've heard that. I've heard both. I mean, I think it's great. But I can understand where people, I have heard that that's a barrier because there's a cost and there's a real time commitment, which really elevates your status, I think. But yeah, I can see how that seems like a lot too, because most other states don't. Oh, I'm just seeing a lot of stuff about mentorship. That is a good idea. I think we've tried to do some of that through the CG or through NGA with some of like our coffee chats, or if you join the special interest groups, or if people have an idea for a special interest group, like if we want to do one for brand new guardians, we can certainly put something like that together. So I think we are trying to be more user friendly. I think ever since COVID, and now we have this Zoom thing that everybody's kind of used to now. It was something that we didn't have or use a lot before, and now everybody's using Zoom for different things, and it's a great connection for across the country. And I love the exchange of ideas from different states, because I think everybody does things a little bit differently, and we can learn from each other. I always say, don't reinvent the wheel, like work smarter, not harder kind of thing. So
We had one person asking again, what is the name of the book?
the name of the book is The Necessary Journey. Oh, if you can see it. By Ella Williams. What was it again? Oh, I had it here. The Necessary Journey, Ella F. Washington. It's Making Real Progress on Equity and Inclusion. And I think I saw in one of the chat things that came up that somebody else said that they have a book club going. So I think that's a great one to use if you're looking for a good book that can apply to just about everything and everybody. So
Wendy had made a comment a little bit ago saying those stories regarding the bad stories that you had mentioned of guardianship, those stories are the things that keep people from wanting to be guardians. I actually had a family member reading Guardianship and the Elderly, the Perfect Crime while in a court proceeding.
yeah, there's some anti-guardianship groups out there, unfortunately, and it's usually family members that have had really bad experiences, and that's unfortunate. Like I said, all I can do is promote the good guardianship. It's hard to really fight that bad stuff that happens, and I just kind of use it as a reason why we need professional certified guardians, is because then you know what you're getting, and there's a certification process, a vetting process. There's also, if people have complaints against them, there is a process for that as well, and you can lose your certification. So I think you have to have both, that you vet people in, and then you vet people out as they, do things that are not the way it should be done.
And Linda kind of commented on that, saying, I think good training and certification programs help weed out bad guardians. Elizabeth shared that this is more of a calling. It is by far the most important work a human being can do, and is extremely difficult, challenging, and fulfilling. Lots of agrees and amens to that. And Debbie had asked the question, what data are you collecting?
Well, right now we're just trying to find out what data is out there, like how many people are under guardianship, how many people are under a full guardianship versus a limited guardianship. Just some real basic things. How many people are under guardianship? It's like, you can ask that. Nobody really knows for sure what the answer is. We have some guesses, but I think we need to do better than just guessing. I think we need to try to get some of that. So there's some people that I'm working with too. Sally Hermy, who a lot of you probably know. She's kind of a guru with guardianship. Pam Teester is a gerontologist researcher out of, I think, Virginia Tech, I believe. And she's done some of the major research in this area. So we're bringing her along. There was another person, and I can't remember her full name, but I believe it's Diane. She just did a webinar on data collection. So we're trying to pull in some people that already know some of this data and know where to find it. So we're doing our best to to try to figure this out. It's like I said, we're brand new, and just at this point I said, let's just find out what's already out there. And then we can start saying, okay, we have this, but what do we really want to know? What would be important for us to know? And again, this is a lot with funding too, when we're trying to get funding for things. And when we get, I just had a media call yesterday from somebody from the Washington Post asking me about some data. And I said, unfortunately, I don't really have that. We're working on trying to get this together, but people are asking this and we don't know, but we're trying to find out. That's all I can tell them.
That's and Leah had mentioned in regards to the data that she is part of our she's one of our speakers. She'll be speaking tomorrow, but
Okay.
part of our registration, we had our 100+ attendees fill out about 10 questions about their guardianship practice, how long they've been in the field, who they're serving, and so we've got that, and we've reached out to the NGA, I believe, about sharing that data. So
Perfect.
we'll pass that on, but I know that's one small piece of 50+. So
Yeah, it's going to be huge to try to collect this and try to make it somehow together, but well, at least we'll know, okay, this is what's out there. What do we need to figure out? So like I said, huge project. So anybody that loves data, come join us, please.
Linda said, are guardians in your state paid through participation?
Paid through participation. I'm not sure what that means. So
Yeah,
the
Linda,
way,
would you be able to clarify in the chat, Linda, what you mean by participation?
so in Minnesota, how we're paid is I have several county contracts. So I contract with counties. They're almost all IFP cases, informed pauperous, that come through adult protection. I do have some private pay clients as well, but that's where I've talked with Minnesota about that. Like each county I have a separate contract with. They're each different. Everybody pays me a little bit different, has different rules. And it just feels very disjointed. And I wish that we could come up with a way to pay guardians. For one, well enough. We don't get paid a ton of money. So I always tell people, if you're coming in this field trying to make a bunch of money, good luck. Unless you got some really great rich private pay clients. But I just feel like that should be consistent across the state and probably across other states too. It's so varied. I mean, I've heard anywhere from like $30 to I've heard $350 or more dollars an hour. So it's really varied. So I just feel like that could be, if we could figure out what, an equitable pay and what would be fair. I know one thing we talked about, I was part of the National Guardianship Summit before. And one thing we were hoping to get is, we talked about, would this be an ADA accommodation? Is this something that we could pay for under, I know Medicare pays a small portion for some things, but if this was an accommodation, is this something we could say they need guardianship in order to function? Is there funding that way? So we kind of talked about some different angles with that. How is it in Washington? Do you know, is everybody, is it a certain flat rate, or how are people paid, or is it all over the place?
Well, and Linda clarified here. She said in Washington State, we get paid by the state if the client participates. Tamara says Medicaid allows $253.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see.
I've heard different things. Like I get like partial payments through MA, but they're very little. Only like $30 a month or something. So the majority of mine is through county contract, but a little bit can be supplemented with that.
So Elizabeth says for Medicaid clients, DSHS pays guardians $235 per month as a reduction from the client's participation. It's a flat rate. I think we need to raise that amount to $440 a month is what she says. You can petition to get your guardian conservatorship fees approved if the client has more funds. Tamara says private paid is based on person rates. Mindy confirmed Medicaid is $235. Our public guardianship program pays more. And let's see. Yeah. Let me hop up here. I think I missed a few questions. You guys are active here. I'm getting lost. Let's see. NGA has some interesting and current webinars. This is from Teresa,
Okay.
but Washington Guardianship doesn't have many of them listed as providing credit. How do we get more of them approved for credit?
Oh, really? So Washington State doesn't recognize some of them? Is that what she's saying? As because they should be certified under the CGC. I believe that's how we get all of our, that they're approved for certification requirements. At least the 4 a year are, I know, and then there's some that you can, there's some of the education are separate paid educations. But I believe the Center for Guardianship Certification is the one that kind of approves or doesn't approve, the credits that you get for that. But, I'm sure every state can be different with that as well.
All right, some other questions here.
I think whenever we talk, there's all kinds of frustrations around guardianship and, the payment is one, I think all of us have probably gone above and beyond what, we're supposed to at sometimes. And, when she talks about being a calling, I truly believe that. I think we've looked at like who comes into this profession, and a majority of people, for one, have like a family member perhaps that have had some kind of disability, or they are through a faith-based organization that somehow they felt this calling. So there's always kind of a reason behind why you became a guardian. It seems like that there's always a story behind that, which I just think is interesting. And it just feels like, yes, people really are called to this field. Like, this is not for everybody. I know that I've had a lot of people say, oh, that would be a fun like retirement job. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're asking. Like, this is not a fun retirement job. It's definitely can be very stressful, unless you're only going to take a client or two, maybe it would be okay. But like, yeah, there's a lot more to it than people think. And it's funny when I hire people too, and they kind of think, oh, well, what do you do besides sign consents? And I'm like, oh, you'll find out. And, there's so much more to it. And they're just, I get staff after they've been here a few months and they're like, I had no idea. And I'm like, yeah, most people don't have any idea all the different things we get involved with. You have to learn a little bit about everything. I feel like, you have to learn some legal stuff. You have to know a lot of medical stuff, a lot of financial stuff. There's just like, you kind of touch a little bit of everything. So I always say it's interesting every day. No day is ever the same, and they're never boring. So I think that's why I like it.
Thanks, Shannon. And so last questions, if anyone has any, feel free to drop them into the chat. But I'll move to, you had mentioned a number of committees that people could serve on with the NGA. What is the best way for them to reach out and participate in that if they're interested?
Well, you can reach out to me and I will forward it along. Or if you want to reach out to NGA directly and just say, I've had people just email there and say, hey, I heard that you're looking for people. This is what I'm interested in. Where would I best fit? And so we just kind of try to find where you best fit. But there's a lot of committees there, but I'm sure Washington State, you probably have your own committees too with your organization too. So I don't want to discourage and take you away from that either. Because there's always like legislative stuff that needs to be done and just education. But yeah, we would love to have you at NGA. CGC is also our sister organization. There's committees there as well. If you're interested more in like the testing and those kind of things, there's committees there as well and involvement there. I think people tend to think that you have to have something special to be able to join these things. And no, really, it's just that your interests, and we'd love to have you join along, and you learn a lot from the other people along the way. I mean, that's what I have great mentors from being involved in the board. that encouraged me through it. I would have never thought I'd open up my own agency doing this, and I did with a lot of encouragement and support and advice from people from NGA and CGC helping me through that. So I think I always say that I think Guardians, you're never going to find a better set of people. Like you go to NGA or you go to these board meetings and everybody is just, you just feel like, oh, I'm home, I'm with my people. People understand what I do. It's just, it's one of those things you don't understand unless you're in the field. And so that always feels so good to me. And you know, the wonderful friendships and stuff I've made over the years being involved. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just saw Mindy's comment there about working together, and I think that's really true. You know, just sharing some of those stories. I think they're starting a new guardianship group too, just kind of like almost like event session, or like, you know, you've got this case and you just need some help with it, that they're trying to like have that out there for people to just talk about what are they dealing with right now. And just kind of get advice, because, you know, although no two clients are the same, you might have had something similar or had some different ideas. I know I've talked before about some of my, I in a former life, I was behavior analyst as well. So I like to do a lot of that with my clients, as well as I get a little more involved on that. And I do like the tougher behavioral cases just because I kind of like to get into that. But I talk about some thinking outside the box ideas. One of them was, we had a client once, I'm just going to share a couple stories here. A client once who there was a lot of issues with him. He was a secret cross dresser for a very conservative family. He did not want them to know what he was spending his money on, because he was buying lingerie and different things. And how we had to really protect his privacy that way, because the family was very demanding about wanting to know where was all of his money going. And we kind of said, like, he has so much money, he uses it how he wants. We're not going to judge him. We're not going to tell you. They wanted itemized lists, so we didn't do that. So we had to kind of protect him from that. And then the other issue with him was that he was getting up at night and making a lot of noise and just purposely keeping his housemates up and doing a lot of things. And one of the things we kind of came up with out of the box, which I thought was really cool because it worked, was that he also really liked, like, anybody in a uniform was cool to him. Like, he always looked up to people in uniform. And so we made him the night watchman, and his job was to make sure that the house was quiet and people were able to sleep. We gave him a badge and you know, different things, and kind of turned it around on him. Instead of him keeping everybody up, he was in charge of making sure they could sleep. So, you know, some of those kind of thinking outside the box, those ones are always fun for me to do when we come up with those ideas, and you just kind of brainstorm, like, how could we make this work for this person? What's important to this person? How could we make this a positive kind of thing? So those are the fun ones I like to do.
Awesome. Awesome. While you were talking, Chick had said NGA has a listserv that you can post cases, questions, etc., with peers in and out of the state. Do you offhand know how someone would register for that listserv?
I think you have to be a member of NGA to be on the
Okay.
listserv.
Okay.
But there is like that's always been there, or that's been there for a long time, I think. But there's actually like a virtual group that gets together now and talks about, I can't remember what it was called offhand. I should have looked it up, but it is something kind of just like a event group, and kind of, you know, a brainstorming group, and just like bring up your cases and let's talk about them and try to process through. Which I think is always good to brainstorm.
Very good. Well, thanks, Shannon. And one last thing I'm actually thinking of. Oh, and we're getting
The
what
book
is the
again.
name of that book again?
Maybe I should just put this in the chat. I'll put my I'm gonna put my email address and the name of the book in there.
All right. And while you're doing that, do you happen to know? So you had mentioned the NGA conferences in Long Beach this year.
Yes.
Do you recall the dates offhand for that?
Ooh,
Or
I can look it up super quick here. Let me look.
right.
I know it's in October. I believe it's like the third week. Yes, the 19th through the 22nd of October in Long Beach. I know that they have not announced what hotel yet, because I think it's because it's a small hotel, or it's a smaller venue this year. And so there's gonna be limited rooms, and they don't want them to all be booked up ahead before they even announce. So they're just kind of keeping that under wraps for now. So this one will be a little bit smaller venue. Then the following year will be Oklahoma City, and that's supposed to be a nice big venue there. So I think we might be doing some of our extra trainings. If anybody's been to NGA, I think they're skipping it this year because the venue is smaller, but we've been doing this guardianship investigator training alongside with the NGA. So that will be back next year at Oklahoma City. And I think we're looking at, they're trying to do a little bit of a public guardianship tract as well. I don't know if you have public guardians there, but they're looking at trying to do like a separate tract for public guardians as well. So we are trying to look at, you know, what's most beneficial for people. What are some specialty things? How can we, you know, make this conference, you know, as applicable as possible for people?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. We really appreciate your time with us. And it seems like there's a lot of really great conversations happening over in the webinar chat. Just to direct you back to the platform. So if you click on, I'm drawing a blank on things, on the lounge, or you'll see like a little chat box over on the left-hand side of your screen. If you click on that, there's a button that'll say join chat room. And we've already got a bunch of people participating in it right now. But you can join chat room by your region where you're at, or if you're a newer Guardian, we've got a group for that as well. So make sure to take advantage of that over the next couple of days. Ask lots of questions and make as many connections that would be useful for you as possible. Shannon, thank you so much again. It was a privilege to have you, and best of luck on the rest of this year. It sounds like it's going to be a busy year for you.
Yeah.
And got some really neat initiatives that you're working on, and excited to hear more about that in the future. So
Well,
thank
thank you
you.
so much. And thanks for having me. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to me personally if you'd like. I'm happy to respond to anything. So thank you so much for having me.
And
Enjoy the rest of your conference.
I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. If anyone wants to track down that email address in the chat, I'll leave up the webinar here for a moment, but we'll end it now.
All right, thank you.